Let's head down south now. The trial of a former Dunedin doctor accused of murdering a teenage girl entered its second week in the High Court in Dunedin today. Venod Skantha is accused of stabbing 16-year-old Amber Rose Rush to death. The Crown says to stop her coming forward with career-ending claims of impropriety. The Crown's witness, an 18-year-old who the Crown says drove Mr Skantha to the scene of the murder, took the witness stand today. Our Otago-Southland reporter Timothy Brown has been following the case and joins us now. Good evening, Timothy. Well, what has this witness told the court?
Good evening, Lisa. What this witness provided us was a reasonably extensive synopsis of what took place on the night and then the 2 days following the night that Amber Rose was murdered. He said that his part in this started when he alerted Venod Skantha, who he calls Vinny, to a social media post by Amber Rose in which she had made disparaging and inflammatory remarks about Venod Skantha. He says a short time later he received a phone call from Venod Skantha saying he was coming to pick him up. At this point, the friend thought he was simply going to go to Venod's house and spend some time hanging out with him. However, when Venod arrived to pick him up, he told him that he was going to be driving and that he was to drive him to Amber Rose's home in the Dunedin suburb of Corstorphine. He says on the way there that Venod told him he had a master plan. Now, at this stage, he thought Venod had been drinking. He didn't really know what he was talking about. He wouldn't elaborate on what that master plan was. But then he asked for directions to Amber Rose's bedroom. The witness says he pulled over a short time later and drew directions to Amber Rose's bedroom on his dashboard. When they arrived at the property, he parked around the corner, as apparently the car had quite a distinctive and loud noise coming from its muffler, so he didn't want that to alert anyone in the address because they may recognise that vehicle's sound. He says Venod then entered the house using a spare key, which he provided the location of. At this point, he called a friend and jokingly said that he was being involved in a murder. He said he didn't think that was ever going to take place, and he thought Venod was simply going to go and confront the teenager, tell her off, I guess. However, a short time later, Venod came back out. He had the teenager's cell phone, which he then put down on the pavement and attempted to break. The witness wound down the window a little bit to say, what are you doing? Amber is going to be so upset with you. And then Venod got in the car. That's when he realised the cell phone was covered in blood and that Venod had a knife, which was also covered in blood. He then drove to various locations around Dunedin to dispose of evidence, and then they went back to Venod's house to clean up before going to Venod's former girlfriend's house in Balclutha. They spent that night there as well as the following night, and on the Saturday, February the 3rd, Venod had suggested having a bonfire in the backyard. There, the teenager was present, the witness, was present as they disposed of a number of items, including Venod's bloody clothes and Amber Rose's driver's licence.
So what can you tell us about this particular witness?
Well, any detail that can identify him is suppressed at an order of the judge. His name, his voice, anything. That's because he was a minor at the time of the crime. But he did tell the court today that he met Amber Rose after briefly dating a good friend of hers back in 2016. He thinks that they met about mid-2016 when Amber tagged along with this friend to their date. Now, the pair only dated for 2 days but remained good friends, and the friendship with Amber Rose blossomed from there. He then met Venod Skantha the next year through a mutual friend. He thinks this was in mid-2017. And then he was responsible for introducing Venod Skantha and Amber Rose to each other. This occurred at a party that he hosted at Venod's house. He said the three spent time together on several occasions, though it wasn't a regular thing. But he says that he wasn't aware of the falling out that occurred between Amber Rose and Venod until the angry exchanges started making their way online sometime in February last year.
So did this witness face cross-examination at all today?
Well, he took the stand first thing this morning at about 10:30, and he remained there all day. His evidence took up the entirety of today, including 3 video interviews with the police that were played for the jury before he faced questions from the Crown. But the defence didn't get a chance to cross-examine him, so he will return to the stand tomorrow when Jonathan Eaton QC will be able to ask questions for the defence.
Thank you for that. That's Timothy Brown, our Otago-Southland reporter, talking about that murder trial in the High Court in Dunedin.